Good evening, folks. It's Diamond with the Oppenheimer Ranch Project and Magnetic Reversal News, bringing you a grand solar minimum update Thursday, September 19th at midnight, Mountain Time. Take a look at the GFS model. Snow continues to pile up in epic proportions, and this is just the next 222. We'll get to that. Imelda moves slowly out of Houston after dropping more than 10 inches of rain. It was over forecast. Keep calm, it's boom time. It was the hottest summer on record for the Northern Hemisphere. Look at how hot that guy is. We're all burning up. The Northern Hemisphere had its hottest summer on record. For the year to date, 2019 is the third warmest ever. It will never snow again. Sea levels will rise. Children will take more pharmaceuticals than ever before because of the climate catastrophe. And it was also the second hottest August on record for the planet ever recorded. At least 6 South Australian towns record their coldest September temperatures ever. Coming out from Electroverse. Thank you, Cap Al-Anon, for the facts. Australia has been impacted by extensive cooling this week, which has already seen record-breaking low-level snowfalls in New South Wales. Now the temperature records take another battering. At least 6 new all-time record low September temperatures were set across South Australia today, Wednesday, September 17th, according to official data from the BOM, which is a boom. And tonight's first boom. Because we're not burning up, just follow the narrative. September snow in Sweden, earliest in at least 20 years. Winter appears to have arrived early in Northern Europe, fresh on the heels of the Siberian wrath snow. The powder has now hit Scandinavia, where locals in Värmland, Sweden, are calling it the earliest snowfall in 2 decades. Is that like the earliest snowfall in 2 decades? Mohi Snow, China's northernmost city, sees the first flakes of the season almost a month earlier than last year, which was early. Early season snows have fallen on China's northernmost city of Mohi, Zhejiang province. The city is considered China's coldest ever, with a record negative 52.3 C. Holy sh! Boom! I got the volume turned way up because people have been complaining you can't hear me. It's cold. Extreme weather wipes a possible 750 million off upcoming West Australia grain harvest. That's like 750 million, yo. That's probably global warming. Now, how many states have seen snow so far this season? Which, by the way, hello, it's summer. Oregon, Cali, Utah. How about Alaska, Arizona, California, Colorado, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, New Mexico, Oregon, Utah, and Washington. 11 states in the middle of summer. And snowfall's a bummer. Where's Al when you need him? Al! Get in your hole! 11 states and it's still summer. You prick. Snow predicted for some parts of southwestern Montana. Here's the arrow. Holy. Mountain snow Thursday night, Friday morning. Adverse hunting conditions, cold, raw, backcountry conditions for those recreating. Or procreating, for that matter. Fall begins Monday, but snow could be here in weeks. In Ohio, they're predicting snow in weeks. What's going on? Snow level drops Thursday night as cooler weather settles in on Montana. We're talking Granite Peak, Lost Trail Pass, down to below 7,000 feet. Boom! I have never in my life seen a GFS model through October 4th that looks like this. Festival of Delights. This is through your October 4th. Yeah. Holy shinoly. That's looking crazy. That's like Colorado. Look at it. Utah. Wyoming. Look at Montana. Idaho. Washington. Nevada. Sierras. But look at Montana. Are you for real? Do we have this big enough? This is Montana. In the first week of fall. Imelda moves slowly out of Houston area after dropping more than 10 inches of rain. They predicted 2 feet, but I do digress. Hurricane Humberto swipe at Bermuda leaves 80% of the island without power. Gusts of up to 120, exactly what we predicted, exactly what we predicted. Did I tell you this is exactly what we predicted? Hurricane Humberto's core has passed the closest point approach to Bermuda just 6 hours ago. But its strong hurricane force winds will continue whipping the island well into Thursday morning. More than 30,000, just about. 80% of the territory were left in the dark as this guy put on another tight suit. I can't even believe it. This is hurricane season, folks, and the red peak is the peak of your tweak. Hurricane season doesn't really end till November 13th, usually Friday. And we're in the peak of it. I mean, it peaks until basically Halloween is right down here. So hurricane season extends through Halloween. What are you wearing? Humberto, well past Hamilton, moving up north. And there you go, Hurricane Jerry, down south, in a flurry. Let's watch Jerry quickly move and strengthen as Humberto exits the picture. Jerry will gain strength. Winds gusting in its profile. We just clicked on that. Let's go to gusts. Let's make Jerry look bigger than she actually is. Oh, is that a he? Doesn't matter. But Jerry is basically going to miss all the major islands, which is fabulous news. Comes straight up here towards nowhere. Not hit the Bahamas at all. And it's going to make a rapid turn north here. Now, unfortunately, Jerry might strengthen into another major hurricane and affect Hamilton and Bermuda. So that is the only real threat for this storm is Bermuda in the near future. So Hurricane Jerry will form, affect no one until it heads towards Bermuda sometime after Tuesday, which will be their lose day as it rapidly rushes towards that island in the middle of nowhere. Look at it. Watch it develop. Holy sh! This could be like a Cat 29 heading right towards Bermuda. Can you look at this? Are you picking it up? This is a computer model, but it looks gigantic and it looks like, oh my God. Bye-bye Bermuda. Well, that's the preliminary forecast. This is coming from the National Hurricane Center. We'll have a better idea in 2 or 3 days what this actually is going to do. Just a heads up, seismic update. No quakes of note. A cacophony of 5 magnitudes stacking up here. Jesus. Louises in the Papua New Guinea region could be precursors to a major event. We are in a major deficit of 6 magnitude. We need 12 6 magnitude in the next day to be in equilibrium. That's all I got to say. Phi angles at 180. Holy! Worldwide volcano news update. Dukono, Sakurajima. That's a volcano. We know about Saku. It was going poo-poo just the other day. Let's get it in here. Let me take out my turquoise. Are we centered? Dukono continuous volcanic ash to whatever level you want to read there, about 7,000 feet. Saku puffing and passing. Kisma also puffing tonight. Ibiko. The standard cacophony of volcanic activity. Have you heard 100 years of climate data was deleted from the Canadian policy report, including historical high and low? Catherine McKenna's climate change ministry is ignoring a century's worth of weather data that doesn't fit with the Liberals' pro-carbon tax fear-mongering agenda. According to a new exclusive report by Blacklock's reporter, Environment Canada admitted 100 years worth of weather data from a federal website intended to illustrate Greta Thunberg's worst nightmare. Staff also use modeling instead of actual temperature readings to plot dramatic graphs. Because just like Michael Mann's hockey shtick, who can shtick it, these are fraudulent data representations of what's actually happening. If you know about the North American data and Roy Spencer's data set, you know that in North America, global temperatures in North America, the average temperature has dropped almost a half a degree since February 2016. Go check it before you wreck it. Now, what I find interesting is the fraud is being exposed on multiple sources simultaneously, which is nice because we have corroborating evidence, people backing it up, and it's like a threshold. It's like we're pushing it forward. Goldstein Fed scrapped 100 years of data on climate change. This is coming out on the Toronto Sun. Also good news. Minister of Environment and Climate Change Catherine McKenna speaks during announcement in Ottawa, 2016-2019. Canadian press, and it's boom time. Now, Canadians already suspicious of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who, by the way, I don't know, something just came out that he's fat or he touched a baby or I don't know, but he's basically done. Anyway, his carbon tax is likely to be even more suspicious, given a report by Ottawa's based Blacklock's report that Environment Canada admitted a century's worth of observed weather data in developing its computer models. Now, what we're going to do, hello, folks. All right, so let's come together. What I want you to do is eliminate all the cooling data and all of the colder temperatures prior to now, and we're just going to take all the data from, let's say, when it started warming till now, and we'll just use that to propagate the future, which is total shite and complete nonsense. But because of the narrative, we're going to win big. We're going to get it big. We'll be big winners, big winners. We're going to save the planet, and we're going to do it, right? Carbon tax. Okay, good job. All right, touche. Now, the scrapping of all observed weather data from 1850 to 1949 basically makes the Canadian government full of shart. And what I mean by that is if you want to look at a climatological perspective, you can't start at 1949 and scrap the rest of the data. That makes you a fraud, like Michael Mann. That will allow you to develop a hockey stick because you're not using facts, and then you go straight to modeling. Hey, let's do this. Let's erase all the cooling, start from the beginning where the warming started in 1949, and how about this? Then we'll just model it forward in a straight line. Yeah, that's what they did. That's what everyone's been doing. IPCC much. Researchers now uncover how the freak cold wave of 2018 formed. Breaking news. They're now covering their asses. The freak cold wave of 2018 formed from Michael Mann's hockey stick and Al Gore's hole. It was a recipe for cold. Yes, Michael Mann's stick and Al Gore's hole was a recipe for cold. Scientists identify weather event behind extreme cold in Europe and Asia during February 2018. And according to this scientific study, global warming will cause cooling. And yes, meridional flow and a breakdown of the jet streams and all the things we've been seeing. It's your fault, folks. CO2, not the people that predicted before all this nonsense that it's natural climate variability caused by the sun. It couldn't be that. It couldn't be that this is a natural cycle that was extremely predictable. And guess what? Guess what this winter's going to bring, folks? No more global warming. Unless it's record snows, record cold, all time, ever recorded. It's going to be insane. I can't wait to report on it. Climate change deniers are now dangerous because we report on the truth and the facts, and we don't even deserve a place in modern dialogue. You know why? Because they want you all to be going, bah, at the conversation in Australia. They have recently vowed to improve climate change coverage. Now, this site claims to believe in the free flow of information. Look at this. Let's break this down. They believe in the free flow of information. However, they now, it's 2019, and they now know better than allowing the free flow of information. Climate change deniers and those shamelessly peddling pseudoscience and misinformation, which basically means it's against their protocol or their narrative. Science always has two sides. It doesn't have one side that's confirmed. That's not called science. It's called dogma or bullshit. But according to the conversation, which is no longer having a conversation, climate change deniers and those shamelessly peddling information opposite of their narrative are perpetrating ideas that will ultimately destroy the planet. I wish the crickets were still out. Now, the facts that we're perpetrating. Shit, where are they? Where are my facts? Here are the facts. So the facts that we're perpetrating are going to destroy the planet. Yeah, well, they will, because it's a natural climate variability that brings the planet into a state of unrest, extreme cold, and climate flux, which causes crops to fail and all species to need food. Not just humans, all the animals suffer. It's a time of evolution. But we're just perpetrating ideas that will destroy the planet. But when in fact they are actually the ones that are perpetrating ideas that will destroy the planet. Because no one will be there to prepare. Isn't it weird that global warming alarmists have no solutions except to tax you on carbon dioxide and to stop drilling and to make more solar panels and wind turbines? How in the world could they eat that? How in the world is that helping anybody? Please, someone comment below if you have an answer to how making more wind turbines will feed the planet as food growing areas go offline because of cooling. But in 2019, we know better at the conversation, which is no longer having a conversation because they are simply dictating their narrative. which does not include growing food, just blocking climatologists that have facts that will save your ass. Should eco-anxiety be classified as a mental illness? Well, of course it will be, because the pharmaceutical industry controls your ass and they want to give pills to little children that are now scared because the world is burning up and you're all going to drown. It's disgusting. Transgenic Aedes aegypti mosquitoes transfer genes into the natural population. Did you know that there are transgenic mosquitoes that have been introduced to the natural world where you live? Did you know that? Did you vote on it? Were you given a decision to allow genetically modified mosquitoes to fly free into the world? I wasn't. Here's the paper to describe how they just fucking did it because they don't give a fuck about you, man. Read the paper and you'll be taping your windowsill shut. Searching for lost clues about the winter of 1861-1862. It's right here. Between cycle 9 and 10, it's called solar minimum. You don't need any clues unless you're clueless. Now, our reporter boards an icebreaker for 6 weeks, and here's why. Because the extreme cold and ice up in the Arctic, which everyone's lying about, and the melting Greenland ice sheet, which is not happening because Greenland is building, extreme cold in Siberia, severe U.S. winter storms and cold, and record-breaking heat across the mid-latitudes may sound unrelated, but it all has to do with you. It's your fault. No, it isn't. It has to do with the sun. And we're repeating the same cycles we did back at the same time where the same things are happening at the same levels with the same output from the same cosmos that we've been in. Now, the most important article is not even up here because somehow it got erased. And I can't even believe that. Mount Tambora eruption led to the year without a summer in 1816, which is not on this graph, but it is also a solar minimum. So if you're wondering how that happened, you get a big VEI 6-7 eruption, and in that hemisphere, it gets dark for 3 years. Stratospheric aerosols. Now, if this happened now with the cosmic ray maximum, hello! I mean, we're not even talking about a year without a summer. We're talking about a decade that was a bummer. Doomsday that didn't happen. It will. I don't care what the think tank thinks. Have you heard about pickling squash? It's easy. I'm going to do a video on it. We have hundreds of pounds of squash still producing. I'm going to pick some. We're going to cut it up. We're going to throw some salt and water and boom. We're going to lacto ferment your ass off. Live, on air, in the next 48 hours. Check it out. Now, my neighbor and I have been talking about PolyCrub. And we're trying to reverse engineer this product by simply looking at pictures. And I think we got it. We're going to be forward engineering the same structure for you that you can build these massive greenhouses for under $1,000 per. And we're going to do it live on air all fall if things fall into place. But before I get to the reverse engineering and the PolyCrub, let's watch the video that inspired it.
From the local shop, had some left, stuck it in the ground, and this is the result. If somebody came to me and said, I don't know anything about gardening, I want to start from scratch, it's very, very easy. We've been led to believe that it's difficult, and we've been disempowered over the years, but it's actually very easy. it's as simple as you can grow most of the crops I grow here. You can grow in a container or a tub. If you haven't got much money, you can repurpose things. I repurpose buckets. Part of one of the permaculture principles is to reuse and recycle things, and these blue barrels wash up quite readily around the shores of Shetland. I presume they're from the aquaculture industry, but I'm not really sure. So we collect these when we find them, and we're beachcombing, and they make ideal water storage. We also discovered that this tile edging makes a fantastic gutter, and so all these barrels have been filled from rainwater because you've got a huge water harvesting area. We also collect seaweed, which is locally known as tang, from the shore, and we make a compost tea from that. Once I sort of got into growing edibles, I then got inspired to look into medicinal herbs like the feverfew, and also then branched out into growing dye plants because I'm also interested in natural dyes. And this is woad, which is a member of the cabbage family, and you get a lovely blue dye. So this is one of the polycultures I have in the tunnel, and in amongst it is this lovely lemon verbena, and it's a half-hardy shrub. So although because we're surrounded by water, it doesn't get very, very cold in Shetland. We don't get really hard frosts. There still has been occasions where the temperature has dipped below freezing in here. So what I've done is in the winter I prune it back, cover it with a fleece, and then I've got these hot water bottles. So they're the local Shetland milk bottles filled with tap water, and I just put them round it like a hot water bottle, and they heat up during the day, and they just emit enough warmth just to keep it above freezing. As well as creating food for myself, I'm also very keen to create habitat for wildlife, for insects. There's currently hoverflies on this parsley, so much of the growing is bearing this in mind, is that I'm also creating habitat and food for the insects and for the other wildlife. I follow basic permaculture principles, and one of those is to use companion planting. So I use nasturtiums around the apple tree because it deters the codling moth, but it's also both its leaves and its flowers are edible, and the seeds as well. These are also edible. They're very fiery, peppery, and you can pickle them and use them like capers. So all the plants have like a dual purpose. The long-term plan is to create a food forest, so an indoor food forest for the things that won't grow outside, and outside I'm also developing a food forest. So it's moving away from quite so many annuals to more sustainable perennial type planting. This variety of pea is a heritage variety from Sweden. It's a very old variety, and as you can see, it's quite unusual. The flowers almost grow in a raceme, and the peas taste really delicious. So unless you create a shelter belt, be it artificial with netting or pallets, or with we tend to use willow trees because they grow very well in Shetland. The wind will just nip the tops of anything that you grow in, any shrubs or trees. It just burns them off. Due to the latitude that we're at, we have 24-hour daylight, and plants like the people like to make the most of the summers here. So we have a very short, intense growing season where kind of everything just bursts into life and does its thing. Because through the winter we get very short days and long nights.
Absolutely amazing. Come check them out. Give them a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel like I just did. Awesome story. And they're all doing it in PolyCrubs, which we're going to be making here at 40 north latitude. They're at 60 north up in Shetland Island. And we get much, much colder than them. In fact, we get 50 degrees colder than they do. But we're going to be doing the same thing here because I've developed technology using thermal mass and water to simply keep things that normally in zone 5A would get minus 20 degrees, but still in the PolyCrubs that we'll create, we're going to try to keep it 32 degrees or warmer. And we're just watch our experiments. We're proving the technology here for you so that you can prosper. Now, I had a lot of blowback from the comments I made in the video where I said we only know about 15% of all the organisms living on Earth. And so I wanted to hone down the science for you. Now, when you get to the graduate level of Scientology in the university, especially in paleontology, where my background comes from, you learn about a term called a guesstimate. It's like an estimate, but it's a scientific bettering of the estimate to a guesstimate. So an actual guesstimate is better than an estimate because you use historical data, scientific facts, and you then use math to make a guesstimate, which is a little better than an estimate, in my opinion. But I digress. Now let's go back to species on the Earth and my claims just 24 hours ago. To date, a total of 1.3 million species have been identified and described. Maybe a little more. It's anybody's guesstimate. But the truth is that many more live on Earth. The most accurate census conducted by Hawaii's universities estimates that a total of 8 million species live on the planet. If we take this figure as good, it means that we have described only 15% of all the organisms that live on Earth. And to be more precise, we still have 86% of terrestrial species to be described and 91% of marine species. To give an example of how far we are from knowing all of the species on the actual planet that we're on, and even claiming that there's an apocalypse of any way. Well, in spite of the figures, the dance of numbers is important, and the different investigations carried out give different values. And the researchers point that at some point there would be 100 million species. But I digress. Let's just come over to the graph. And this blue number here is Animalia, which is 76% of all life. And 17% would be plants. And the fungi here in the green. And then bacteria and protozoas over here in this smaller region. Now the prominent group is Animalia. But that doesn't mean mammalia, people with bones. Because the predominant group in Animalia is Arthropoda, like a trilobite. Or an insect, like a pine beetle, or this nasty looking pincher bug. So the arthropods are the predominant species on Earth, insects. 76% or more, of which 86% is unknown. So how could you know there's an insect apocalypse? If 86% of the entire group of 76% of all life on Earth is unknown. That would be like just we know this little piece of the pie here, and we know now 5% are dying, so that we now know that all of them are dying. That could not be further and more disingenuous than ever. Those are just the facts. It is my contention that insects control the narrative, not humans. Not CO2, and not any other prick that wants to buy.
Right now, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is in Saudi Arabia reviewing the evidence collected from the attacks, which Pompeo called a, quote, act of war. Pompeo, over the weekend, directly blamed Iran for the attack, though President Trump has been a bit more circumspect about definitively pinning the blame. The president is being pushed and pulled in every direction, so what will Mr. Trump ultimately do? CNN's Barbara Starr kicks off our coverage from the Pentagon.
Standing next to his new national security advisor, President Trump still stopping short of military action against Iran for its alleged attack on Saudi oil facilities.
We're really at a point now where we know very much what happened.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, shortly before landing in Saudi Arabia for talks with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, told reporters that the strikes on Saudi oil facilities were an Iranian attack on an unprecedented scale, calling it an act of war.
There were no Americans killed in this attack, but anytime you have an act of war of this nature, there's always risk that that could happen.
However, Pompeo did not provide details definitively showing the attack was launched from inside Iran.
You can see of the debris.
Today, Saudi...
It's boom time. That's all I have to say there. U.S. Navy confirms Tom DeLonge of Blink 182 was right about UFOs. Recently, former Blink 182 guitarist Tom DeLonge has gained a reputation as a believer in UFOs. And he co-founded the UFO research organization to the Stars Academy of Arts, Science, blah, blah, blah. It turns out that DeLonge might really be onto something. In an interview with Motherboard, Joseph Gardisher, or however you say that, a spokesperson for the Deputy Chief of Naval Operations for the Information Welfare, said that the Navy considers the phenomenon contained depicted in the 3 videos DeLonge made public as unidentified as true. Yeah. The Navy thinks that DeLonge's UFOs are UFOs. And you know what? So do I. Because they are the same UFOs described back in the 80s. Well, anyway. We know about those craft. Area 51 much? They're storming it this week. Pennsylvania state senator arrested for child pornography. Look at the smile on this prick's face. A Pennsylvania state senator who once opposed legislation meant to help victims of child sexual abuse has been arrested and charged with possession of child pornography, prosecutors said Tuesday, which was his lose day. Republican state Senator Mike Fulmer, man, I remember this prick, admitted Tuesday night to receiving the child pornography, blaming some personal problems and issues, authorities said, which could involve future hanging of himself, hopefully, said Diamond. Are you listening, Fulmer? Are you hanging yourself yet? Hope you got something out of the video. These PolyCrub, basically hoop houses. These are windproof hoop houses that are being successfully used up in the Shetland Islands. We're going to develop our own variety down here because we're headed here. And we're still searching for lost clues about the winter of 1861 and 62. Keep calm. Yeah, they're idiots. Do you see the pattern? It's right there. Cycle 9 and 10. Share this with like-minded people that know how to find clues and learn about facts. Thank you.